Yeah, this is one of my friends asked me something like this as well when I talk about them. Sometimes I catch myself doing it, talking about we need to tax. If we don't tax them, then the future's going to be bad for us and our kids. This is a funny one for me because, you know, like, obviously I've spoken in videos and in the media that I've made a lot of money. So some people say that means I'm on their side, I'm one of them. But I mean, it's a funny one because, you know, like I've said in many videos, I grew up poor. Like in the school I was in, I was the poorest kid in the school, one of the poorest kids in the school, and I was poor up until I was 22, 23 when I started doing this job, you know. And I've experienced most of my life has been a life being poor, and my parents are poor, and my brother's doing all right now. My sister struggles to get through sometimes, and a lot of my friends growing up are still, you know. But then at the same time, I've been to work in the city, and you know, after that I went to study at Oxford, and then you go to these spaces, and they're full of rich people from rich families, and the truth is I'm a rich person, but I'm not from a rich family, and I didn't go to those schools that those kids went to. So when I feel like, who am I? Where am I from? I don't feel like those kids I studied with at Oxford. I don't feel like those guys that I worked with at the bank. But I do feel like the kids growing up around here because they're growing up how I grew up. But at the same time, like I totally understand. As an adult, like, I've been lucky to make money at quite a young age, and I don't have the struggles that some of my friends have of worrying about, like, am I going to be able to provide a good life for my kids? I don't have those worries. So, like, I understand that the money that I've made in some ways separates me from the people I grew up with and the life I grew up with. But at the same time, like, that was my life that I grew up with, you know what I mean? And that's the life that still my family lives and the people I grew up with live. So, obviously, if I wanted to, I could have stayed in the city and I could have made more and more and more money. But the kids now, who are like what I was when I was a kid, they would struggle, you know, like I struggled. And look, if I didn't get a few lucky breaks, it wouldn't have worked out for me. I won my job in the card game, you know what I mean? You know, I got in a lot of trouble back in school, and if things went the wrong way, I could have got a criminal record and I wouldn't have been able to get in those jobs, you know. Like, I got the lucky breaks that enabled me to make it. The truth is, nowadays, the vast majority of kids from my background don't have a chance. So I know how hard it is to come from a poor background and not. For me, what was so important was that I had a chance to make it, and I did have a chance. But increasingly, kids don't have a chance, and I worry what my life would have been like if I didn't get that chance, and what it's going to be like for the kids growing up now. And the fact is, if we don't fix things, it's not really about the rich versus the poor. It's about, like, the 1% versus the rest of us, because increasingly more and more and more families won't have property, and will become poor. You know, more and more people, and I don't want to live in a world where I have to choose between being normal and being poor. You know what I mean? Or I don't want to have where you have a choice of either being normal or having security. The only way to have security is to not be normal, you know what I mean? Like, I want to live in a world where lots of people have the chance to live a good life, you know? And it's not a choice between living, the only way to live a good life is to separate yourself from the rest of the people, you know what I mean? That's something that I feel deeply, like, you know, I can work in the city if I want, and I can study in Oxford if I want, but I can only do that by living a life surrounded by people who are not normal and who have not lived normal lives, you know what I mean? And I don't want that. I want to be able to be with normal people, but also have opportunities to make money. I don't want to have to choose between stability and having to separate myself from the rest of the world and the people I grew up with. So yeah, I mean, it's not as simple as us and them. Like, it's not like a battle. It's a question of, like, do we build a society that works for most people, or one that only works for, like, a tiny minority, and then most people have to live a difficult life. Yeah, and I know what I want. And yeah, hopefully the people watching are gonna want the same thing, yeah, and they're gonna like and subscribe, innit? But poorer families will be forced to lose almost all of their assets, including their home. We have a tax system which is very efficient at taxing ordinary working people, but very inefficient at taxing the super rich.